All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but QA is the important part. Obviously stands for question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation, get our tech week started off right, just kind of feel out the news that broke over the last week, do a little bit more than just get outraged by headlines, and maybe some news broke over the weekend. We can kind of follow up on that too. So it's always critically important. I'm seeing a great list of names here in the chat, seeing some familiar faces, and we're gonna get this week kicked off. It's why I like to hold my podcast on a Monday. Got Jimmy Fire Dragon making sure everyone's hydrated. ER 1980, you are absolutely correct. We need to get TK on one of these streams. TK's Monday mornings. Again, Monday mornings are tough. If you've got like an actual job, not your some YouTube guy, it's tough locking people down on a Monday morning. But I do miss those Thursday night streams with TK. I actually had lunch with him last Friday just to kind of catch up and see how he was doing. And we had like 7 phones at the table while we were eating some pizza. It was really cute. So yeah, I'm still trying to keep up with my pals and my buddies out there. Team Fry, Juan, you should hold the podcast every day. You know what? Actually, if I did a daily stream, they probably would. You know what? I say that. I immediately got to take it back. I was going to say, hey, if I did a daily stream, they probably wouldn't be 3 hours long. And knowing me, they'd probably get longer. I'm going to be here every day. Let's stream for 4 hours. It's great. We got Simon Says Hypno saying hello, all. We've got, okay. Oh, so Azariah here is testing me. Um, okay. Magnificent, majestic, magnanimous, miraculous, meticulous, merciful, motivational Monday morning Juan and esteemed chat. Got it again. We got Ms. MRKV saying, Hola, Juan. Go V8. Just jumping right to it, asking the real questions. Yo, we got any price predictions for that Steam gear? My body is ready. Shut up and take my money. We're going to be talking about that quite a bit. We got H2O Taku. We've got Ron Guido saying, hi, happy Monday. Team Vry, literally, finally, early for a change. Team Vry, you are always on time. Whenever you show up is exactly the time you should be. We got Mousy316 saying hello. Darren Morin saying good morning, Juan. I know there are time constraints and all that, but I seem to recall we were going to discuss the Sony CREC20 OTC hearing aids and your thoughts on them with the channel. And when we get into the second half of the show and we get kind of more into the gadget block, if we want to talk some hearing health, some audio tech, I mean, audio has been a big part of the channel for always, but especially lately, some really interesting gadgets and gizmos that we can all check out. Simon Says Hypno, somebody is itching to talk about the Steam frame. I am always vibrating with excitement whenever the topic of Valve's Project Deckard has come up, and some really fun things that I think we have to look forward to. From my own personal experiences, Steam Machine is also a really interesting topic that we're going to dig into later on. And Team Vry, I met TK once in an elevator at an honor event, and I got to shake his hand. TK is a real one. TK is one of the best out there. And again, we're all just feeling that weight and that pressure of social media and platforms that mess with your analytics and your audience. And someone like TK should automatically have an extra 0 at the end of their subscriber count, with all of that traffic really boosting his channel up. But, he actually does the work and talks about things with consistency and tries to share earnest experiences, and he's not just out there marketing. So, of course, a channel like his is going to sort of float in a sort of an in-between space instead of getting the credibility, the acknowledgement that it really deserves. Mr. Saeed Ted, good morning, Gadget Gang. What is up, Ted? Okay, first of all, I hope everyone out there had a lovely week. Last couple days, we've been getting lots of rain. Southern California is not built to handle just a deluge. So, like, our back patio flooded again. We've got to work with our HOA on how to get better drainage in there. It's a mess. It's really gross. But again, It is nice to get some rain. LA is really pretty after it gets a shower. I took the Vivo X300 Pro out for some video samples, shot 4K 120 log, and color graded it. I am terrible at color grading. I say color graded, and for me, that's like, well, I put on a LUT and then I did some slight adjustments to like shadow and some white balance and just some tweaks in there. I'm not really a video editor. I'm an audio editor, but I do like to tweak and play, and so I'll say I color graded that log footage, and that's one of the things we can jump right into some housekeeping. But again, I hope everybody else out there also had a lovely weekend. Got to do some fun stuff with some fun people and some fun tech and some fun toys, and maybe eat some fun food. That I feel like that is like the criteria for a fun weekend. All right, let me get into some screen share. Do I want to go bottom up or top? You know, I'm going to go top down because I already just mentioned this. I don't do this nearly as much as I used to because YouTube really poops on it. This is something I used to do a lot. So I would do. I've always been doing these really long camera reviews. Now they're patron exclusives. I don't even do those as often just because I feel like a lot of phone manufacturers just get really repetitive with the camera tech they put out. From the Pixel 8 Pro to the Pixel 10 Pro XL, do I really need to make a 40-minute video just telling you, "Hey, it's kind of the same as it's been for the last 3 years, guys. Some of the AI processing sucks more. That's cool." I mean, do you want 40 minutes of that? Cuz I don't want to make 40 minutes of that. I digress. Getting into screen share so we can get this housekeeping out of the way. I went out and I really wanted to get some good samples of 4K 120 video footage, and I got soaked. It was raining decently hard, and like I don't have a lot of really rugged, practical rain gear. So I was out for, I don't know, 45 minutes, something like that. I got all of these little samples and clips, and brought them back inside, and I stitched them together. And while I was just doing some little edits and touch ups, I thought, hey, you know what? This is really pretty footage. It's 4K, it's 120 frames per second. That slows to 1/4 speed slow mo. And you're just seeing all these little pretty, like, raindrops and little splatters and, flowing water down, the drainage and stuff, and trees kind of in the breeze. Let me just slap some music on it and I'll throw it up on YouTube. It's just kind of fun. So, rainy day in LA with the Vivo X300 Pro. It's 2 minutes, and I just wanted to share a little calm, a little chill. There's like some light, quiet strumming guitar, acoustic guitar playing throughout, and I thought it turned out pretty well. The entire time from putting on my shoes, going outside in the rain, collecting all these samples, bringing them back in, slapping on a LUT, doing a little color correction, doing just a little like light and shadow exposure correction, finding a music track, putting it all together, and uploading it to YouTube took about an hour. And I know I've already gotten some comments like, I don't know, I mean, phone cameras aren't as good as mirrorless and DSLR cameras. And that might be true, but my ability to do something similar to this with a mirrorless camera, not the same. Not the same. And also, just however you might like expect the durability and water resistance of mirrorless cameras to survive pretty decent rain. So, that's available public on the YouTubes and on some gadgetguy.com. Then last week, we got the official embargo release for the OnePlus 15. So the OnePlus 15 review, hip to be square question mark. And I got real spicy on this one. I don't check in on the Twitters very often, but found a couple people clipping. I have a 2-minute rant about how little I think of tech influencers who are bagging on the OnePlus 15 cameras because, oh, we're just so concerned that it's a downgrade now. And apparently, that 2-minute clip of me talking trash about massive YouTube channels with millions of subscribers who should know better, um, That's what got shared. So again, in all of our social media, if it's Twitter or Facebook, Meta adjacent, you can always count on people trying to make arguments out of things. I got legit frustrated, angry, and I'm mad that I made that clip. I mean, it was pre-embargo. I made that clip before all the global reviews went live. So I'm not responding to one specific person, but in the comments on my review, people are talking about all of the other channels who are doing exactly what I said they would. So it's just galling how utterly predictable tech influencers have become. You already know OnePlus is the whipping boy brand like LG used to be. So how are they gonna talk trash about the OnePlus 15 this time? What are they gonna say is a deal breaker this time? And the only thing that I really feel they can pin, because they can't really promote the battery and charging tech, that makes Apple and Samsung and Google look bad. They can't really go too heavy on the Qualcomm chip because the Snapdragon will probably be in a Samsung, but it makes the Google look bad. You know, there so many of these things you can kind of whittle it down, and then you get to this point. Of course, they're going to talk trash about the cameras, and they're not going to make any comparisons to the Apple and Samsung phones, and actually the Pixel 10, not the Pixel 10 Pro, but the Pixel 10 at the same price. The OnePlus 15 cameras are still fine. They're still competitive. It's a downgrade, and it's still better than a Galaxy S25 Plus. But I can't say that, because if I say that, Samsung's PR is so horrifically punitive that then I'll be left out of future Samsung PR events and early access and previews and review units. Maybe I won't get a Galaxy S26. So I need to find something that says the OnePlus 15 is a loser. Oh, it's not as good as the 13. But if that mattered, they would have pointed out that the 12, 13, the 10, the 9 Pro, the 8 Pro all had camera advantages over Apple and Samsung. So basically, they've been lying to you for 6 years. Because, oh no, the cameras, no, they're not as good because it's OnePlus, and OnePlus cameras aren't as good. Oh, now it really matters that the OnePlus 13 has better cameras than the 15, but the 15's cameras are better than the S25's. But don't pay attention to that, because then Samsung won't give me free stuff. All right, hold on. I gotta get in here. And also, I gotta mute someone here, add to block list. Someone just did a bunch of stuff on Twitch comments, and I gotta mute them now. Let me take a little drink of coffee, and then we can wrap up the last bit of this housekeeping. Simon says hypno. I saw someone whine about how the Vivo X300 and OnePlus 15 look alike. That was the gripe. I I don't see how, unless you mean the same color. Like, oh, and I have different cases on them, so that's not gonna help. So here's like the OnePlus 15, and it's got a square, and here's the Vivo, and it's got a circle. But I guess they both have some kind of khaki brown color. Yep, they sure do look alike. Man, it makes me sad because I'm here in a safe place now with a bunch of nerds. Y'all are a bunch of nerds. I love you. I love you nerds. But doesn't it feel like we have completely lost our little fingertip toehold on actually discussing more products based on the merit of that product? And it feels like we've wildly lost or fallen behind this idea that whatever is algorithmically most popular gets the majority of the attention, regardless of whether or not it's a better product. And it's exhausting. It's guaranteeing us worse gadgets, especially here in North America, where Apple and Samsung and Google are basically just copying each other to give us less device for more money. And I feel like until we can get more techies on board to have those kinds of conversations with their family and friends, that it's really just going to keep getting worse and worse for us. I've been kind of joking, but it seems like my jokes have become prophetic that this entire tech industry is unsustainable and is kind of ratcheting itself in a way that is going to ruin all of these products that could genuinely make lives better, and we could bring attention to the stuff that's really cool and really works and helps people get through their day, maybe replaces the need for other products and accessories and features and services. But instead we'll complain that the OnePlus and the Vivo both come in the same color. I guess that's what passes for tech commentary. Everyone say hey. Barry Johnson in the chat saying hello, Juan and chatters. Celtic Delta saying indeed, Cook was a disaster over the last few years. That's one of our top stories, is talking about what's going to go on with Apple and Tim Cook. Team Brian Simon having a little chat from Ms. I'm going to say Ms. Merkov. That's what I'm going to say your name is. I have no idea how you pronounce your username, and I apologize. From the front, all phones look almost the same though. So we talked about this. I talked about this in the OnePlus 15 video, but we've talked about this in other videos. I am so happy that phones are going to flat screens. I did not like curved screens. I would give devices positive reviews despite. I don't like curves the way I hold the phone, my little stumpy thumb. I'm right-handed, but I have a definite this thumb got hurt when I was a kid, never fully properly healed, so it's literally smaller than my left thumb. I like that we're back on flat screens. That doesn't mean we need to make the whole rest of every phone look exactly like an iPhone. From the frame, the curves on the corners. Sony did flat screens, and you would never hold up an Xperia next to an iPhone and confuse the two. But if I showed you just the bottom angle and the bottom corners of every other Android phone out there, and we played a game, iPhone or Android, I think a lot of people would get their answers wrong because they're now cribbed so exacting to what iPhone looks like. And I think that's a bad play. I think that's only going to encourage people to buy more iPhones. I'm sorry, I'm way off here. Go V8, you're not dissing the $150 iPhone sock, are you? But again, because iPhones have looked so similar since the iPhone 10, how are you going to show people that you spent more money at Apple? Again, it's got to be a fashion accessory. It doesn't matter how powerful it is, how good the cameras are, if the battery life is improved, if the charging tech is improved. What matters is that you show your neighbors that you're wealthy and prosperous and that you bought something expensive from Apple recently. So again, it's going to be like, these are the fall colors for the Apple sock. And then, next year's colors are going to be really bold. And maybe they'll even come out with like a leather sling. Ooh, then you'll really be able to show your neighbors that you spent more. And unfortunately, even in tech circles, it's that kind of case roundup and MagSafe compatible accessory videos that just contribute to the idea of this being fashion. It's form. It's not function. It doesn't matter what you can do with it. It matters that it's the new one and that it looks cool. And then here's a Geekbench score if you are a nerd who cares about such things. So yeah. All right, so let me get this out of the way. Oh yeah, I still had one other video. So we're gonna be talking about. I mean, I also did just an immediate reaction video talking about Steam Frame, and I had to be cheeky. I titled it "Can Valve Save VR After Vision Pro Flopped?" But the big review was for a small pair of headphones, the Beyerdynamic Eventho 100 on-ear wireless headphones, and I've really enjoyed what Beyerdynamic is doing. In professional circles, Beyerdynamic has this love-hate relationship with the tuning. I love the DT770 Pro, but I know what they are, and sometimes I have to make adjustments for them. Same thing, DT990s have this reputation for being kind of presence peaky. But I also feel they are headphones built of a necessity. And for a lot of older recording engineers, there's a reason why they gravitate towards that peaky, that kind of presence peak on Beyerdynamic headphones. Their consumer gadgets have been a little hit or miss. I've liked some of their earbuds, even though what was not the Bluebird. I can't remember what their name of their True Wireless. The True Wireless failed on me just recently, but they had a pretty good run. They went almost 4 years, I think. But still, I was really disappointed that one ear started to cut out, and then I couldn't fix them, couldn't recharge them. Their neckband was pretty good, but their cans have been really hit or miss. So back in the, I want to say 4 years ago, was the Dynamic Lagoons. Terrible design, terrible headband. I couldn't like move my head without hearing the headband crink and rattle, and it was just grating. The newer Dynamic consumer stuff has been pretty good. Evento is a really fun twist on an on ear. So if you have smaller ears, and these rest on your ears, that might be the right fit for someone who doesn't want big cans over their ears. So it's just a nice little addition to their lineup, acknowledging that one size does not fit all. This is probably not going to be the audio solution if you've got a big head like I do. But again, we have to acknowledge that something that doesn't fit me very well isn't universally bad. And that's another thing that really pisses me off about a lot of reviews, especially once you start getting into like audiophile stuff. Well, obviously, this tuning and this frequency response, and this is what's preferred. And you're like, cool, except for the fact that ears are really funky, and something that resonates with you might not play with someone who has a slightly different shape to their ear canal. It is that funky and granular. So, Evento come in a way where um, they're probably not going to be the solution for me, but I think they fit in a niche that is woefully underserved. And if you like on ears and you like some of the passive noise reduction and stuff, this is a review that I think you should check out because I think they're a unique option in this space right now. Man, you guys are all talking about Gatorade flavors, and I'm just drinking sort of hours old cold coffee. I just need to up my beverage game for these live streams. You know what? Maybe that's why I get like kind of foggy 3 hours into a podcast because I don't have enough electrolytes because it's what my body craves. Oh, Team Vry. I mean, what sucks is like we can't talk people out of stuff like this. Team Vry says, "Oh man, I know someone who bought the iPhone 16 Pro simply because it was the newest iPhone without much regard for anything else. They don't even want to upgrade it because upgrades ruin it." Um, I just had this long conversation with my wife. We were this is going to be part of a short that I'm going to shoot. We were driving our there's a little local landfill here in our suburbs, and they did like twice a year they do a hazardous chemical sharps medical drop off and e-waste, so free e-waste drop off. And I went through my bookshelf of my bookshelf, my bookshelf of shelves. I went through my bookshelf of phones, and another six Samsung devices, the battery had puffed. So I was like, okay, I really got to get rid of these. I went through a bunch. There was one OnePlus that battery puffed. It was the very first Nord. I can't remember what the model number was. The very first Nord that came to North America that had battery puffed. An ancient Oppo had battery puffed. Two of the really cheap M series Pocos had battery puffed, and then six more Samsungs had battery puffed. And I was like, okay, it's really just time. I know one of them, like I was trying to hold on to the Samsung. It was a Galaxy S6. I know it has photos from when my wife was pregnant with Lex, but I looked through. Most of them had been backed up or uploaded. I was really using OneDrive heavily. It's like, okay, it's not worth trying to repair this and keep a puffed battery until I can find the time to repair this. So we did the drop off. Sorry, this is a really long walk to get through this story. But on the drive, my wife said, "Hey, I was watching an old episode of QI. It's a charming British television show. It's all just about random facts, and it's kind of neat." And they were saying something about how modern gadget batteries, you don't need to like discharge and recharge. Like you don't have to go through a full charge cycle. Batteries don't have memory like they used to. And it just got us into this conversation about repairability and look up your Pixel. Your Pixel doesn't even have a battery health setting on it. She's got a Pixel 8. It's never gotten that feature in her settings. And it's just really kind of wild how little education we supply for consumers to know, like, what's going on with your phone, and is this really a problem, or is this something that an update can fix, or is this something that you need to take it to a shop and repair? And like, your car makes a funky noise and a check engine light comes on. There's nothing like that for your phone when it gets to 3 or 400 battery charge cycles, and then the CPU gets throttled because Apple can't be bothered to put in a decent enough battery to last as long as the software updates will be provided for that phone. So cool. I'm really glad we've got 5 and 7 and 8 years of software and security updates, but we know that battery is going to go up in about two. And again, really concerning for Pixel stuff. So you get to this, and I think there's this pressure that we still kind of put consumers on like a 2-year device refresh cycle. I made that joke. One of my cousins, he was all about, well, I got to have the iPhone Pro because I'm, playing games and stuff. And you're like, you're not really doing anything on an iPhone Pro that warrants having an iPhone Pro. Like, he mostly just streams Twitch on it. He got really pissy. I showed him the Duo back in the day, and look, you can do two things at the same time. And he's on his phone, and one of the streamers that he follows was doing some contest, and he couldn't do anything else on his phone. Can't do anything else on his phone. He needs to be on Twitch. So he was like talking to his sister, like, okay, you've got to do this for me. And can you look this up? And oh, someone texted me. Can you get back to them? Because I can't leave the Twitch stream because I got to be here for this contest. And I'm like, well, look, on my Duo, I can do two things at the same time. It's just awful. But we can't like talk people out of that if that's their mentality. I need to have the latest and greatest. Why? Because I do. And then I'm not really going to use anything on it, but I know I have the best. And it's not true. It's not the best, but we can't break people from that chain, from that cycle of, and again, it's consumerism, but I want to like make it more specific than just that. Let's see. Majestic Moose, it reminds me I need to stock up on Brondo. Make sure you get your plants watered. It's got what plants crave. Gadget Goddess just popping in to say, hey, everyone, I'm in listen mode only. Well, thank you for dropping by, and I always love seeing your face in the stream. I apologize. I've had to miss the last couple weeks. Your stream has been on during softball practices, so I haven't been able to pop in and just say, hey, but we finally wrapped up fall ball, and I'm hoping I can be a more regular participant in some of the chat. And Celtic Delta QI is awesome. I love that show, and especially the more recent seasons too. And I can't remember her name. The host who took over after Stephen Fry. I just adore the dry wit. Again, it's so adorable when you do crack her up on that show because she's so British and so reserved. No, she's not even British, is she? She's just so proper and reserved, and then you get her, and like you just see her break, and it's hilarious. I love it. Oh, Gadget Goddess. Puffy batteries make me think of the Tech Preachers collection. Okay, I'll go back into hiding now. Well, let him know I've gotten rid of a lot of phones. He might actually be beating me now because I'm not trying to stockpile like I used to. But I'm going to put a short together. And again, just to kick it off on this stream here, I hope everyone will go out. The holidays are coming up. Talk to your family and friends. It is really dangerous to have old gadgets just lying around in like junk drawers. Start helping them clean that crap out. And I know someone like a Jay will come in and is like, oh, well, actually, all batteries can fail and battery puff. But there's something systemic about older galaxies. And a lot of people don't put these together or willfully keep them separate. You would think a more expensive phone would be less prone to this kind of situation, but Samsung, and now apparently Google, seem to employ really cheap battery tech. They don't give us the good stuff, and there's something about Galaxies, they fail at a higher rate than any of the other premium tier manufacturers of their era. So on my bottom bookshelf, I wish I could just take this camera. I should really set up two cameras so I can kind of walk around the office. But I've got a little just cheap Target bookshelf. And I would say there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I can fit about 50 phones on one shelf. Okay. So, and probably more, but I'm just spitballing here. I'm just guessing. That bottom shelf used to be almost all Samsung. And then over time, Samsung batteries would puff. I'd look at the phone. Is this something I really need to hold on to? A Galaxy Mega? No, you know what? I can dispose of this. I can take it to like an e-waste facility. I can get rid of it. I'm now down to about 10 Samsungs because all the rest have failed at a much higher degree than the HTCs and the LGs that I used to have on a separate shelf, but have taken over most of the Samsung shelf. So I've had one LG go up. I've had two cheaper HTCs. Like you remember when we all used to do light versions of phones? I had two HTC lights go up, but my M7, M8, M9, all of those are golden. And I've got like multiple versions of the M8 and M9. None of those battery puff. All of them still hold a good charge. All of those are doing great. But Samsung is the number one Android supplier in North America. So it's very likely your family and friends might have a Galaxy S3, a Galaxy S5, maybe an S7 lying in a junk drawer somewhere, and that battery's going. That battery is going up. And there's something about Samsung's that this seems to fail at a higher rate than a lot of these other manufacturers. So I was kind of in the comments on a live stream, and some dudes were just kind of, well, but that's not a big deal. Those are older phones. People don't even use those phones anymore. And that's the problem. If these phones, the batteries were still in regular care, they might not have failed like this. But you let a battery fully discharge and it gets too old, and whatever happens chemically inside the battery starts to fail, that's where it becomes a problem. So it's not people aren't using them. We know they're not using them. The problem is they're not being used and they're just lying dormant in some drawer or shoebox or closet or something like that. So this is the PSA. And then we'll get on to the actual podcast. Talk to your family and friends and help them clean this stuff out. Look around, see if your community has like an e-waste drop off, or if a Best Buy is working with the city government, or if there's like a landfill and you can take this stuff and you can dispose of it properly and get it out of their house. These are little ticking time bombs. And as someone who has a ridiculous bookshelf, 20 phones on his desk, and then a whole cubby in this behind me full of little batteries, don't do that. Don't sit on this stuff. Get rid of it when you're done with it. It is way safer for you. So, Jimmy Fire Dragon saying, I think we can see the Pixel battery health now in settings. I looked on her, you know what? I have not checked if my wife's Pixel 8 has been updated. If she's sitting on an Android update, that might be what's holding her back. I'm gonna double check that because I can see her charge cycles if I use another app. She's at 350 charge cycles, so I know there's definitely some battery degradation on that Pixel 8. But oh, what was it I just pulled up? Oh, right. It's right here in front of me. So I looked up my OnePlus 12. My OnePlus 12 is at 200 charge cycles because I haven't been using it very heavily over the last year. And it's at 98% battery health as self-reported by the OnePlus app there. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty good. That's pretty good for a phone that was used crazy heavily for a year and then has been almost not used at all for a year. I can't complain about that. 2%? If I'm losing 1% a year on OnePlus, I'm doing pretty good. Oh, Sandy, she's Danish. The host of QI is Danish. I remembered that. As soon as I said British, I was like, oh, wait, no, she's not British. She would definitely take umbrage with that assessment. Majestic Moose. Hey, Juan, what is the oldest phone you have that you would still be comfortable using? That is a very good question. I think for my needs and what I would want to get done on the go, I could probably take it back to I mean, the Lumia cameras are always great. So a Lumia 930 or a Lumia 1520 could still be fun today. But I think practically, realistically, I would probably go back to an LG V20. I could go back to an LG V20 and do very well with the kind of stuff I get done during the day. And I do have a spare LG V20 battery that has not puffed up. So even though I would get miserable battery life per battery, I could easily swap midday. Bionic Scoop jumping in saying, "What? What's up, Scoop?" Let me get this out of the way. And sorry, you guys have lots of E-Johns. I miss LG phones every day. I miss LG phones. Um, and from Hikari, every other year I hear about problems with the Pixel A series battery and Google sending out an update to limit performance or something to mitigate the issue. And now they're not sending out updates because they're just baking it in. Your battery and your CPU will throttle after 200 charges. Doesn't matter if the battery's doing fine, Google's just going to pre-throttle, kind of like Apple does. There's this huge issue with iPhones and battery capacity, and everyone's just sort of fine with it. So that's great. We're going to keep giving those companies money, I guess. From Tangential Tesseract, my OnePlus Opens battery health is reporting 95%, and I got it just a couple months after it released. The OnePlus 15 will probably have incredible longevity. And I really do believe fast charging helps a battery. Not I can plug an iPhone into an iPad charger and cook it with an iPad charger. I mean real fast charging like SuperVOOC or whatever hypercharge I think Xiaomi uses. I can't remember what they call it. But the actual higher amperage fast charging to get up to that higher wattage, I think that is actually going to help preserve your battery longevity. If you use a bunch of wireless charging, I think you're cooking your battery. You're probably going to burn that battery out faster. But if you're using a good cabled fast charging and you're charging sort of like every other day, because that's kind of what I do with my OnePlus 13 and my OnePlus 12 before it, my OnePlus 15, I'm getting to like I'm topping it off on day 3. And I'm not having to charge all the way. It's pretty great. So, we got some news that I want to cover. We do have some political news that we need to cover. Did I get the other story in there? Oh, I think I missed a link, and that's fine. I've already rambled on too much. It's 9:40, and we're done with housekeeping. Let me take a drink of coffee. We'll get through a couple stories here, and then I've got to nerd out hard on what Steam is doing with their most recent announcement. I geeked out in a standalone video, and I gotta do more. I gotta nerd out more. I'm so giddy over the potential here. So drink coffee, and then let's kick off some news. Okay. Oh, sorry, real quick. Oh, Majestic Moose, great pick on the LG V20. I never had one, but I still miss my V30. I have the V30 over there. I still really like the V30, but there's something about that metal backplate battery swap. It's V30 is a champ though. And V30 is still one of the prettiest phones that's ever been made. And then I just want to say this from eJohn's 1004. My OnePlus 12, which I got day one and have been using as my only phone, is still at 96%. 2% a year. 2% battery drop per year because you had an actual big battery for its time. And if you're using the VOOC chargers, I still use some of the older Warp chargers also. If you were using those chargers, then your battery is probably going to last a lot longer than a Google or a Samsung. So, I'm bringing this up because I want y'all to read this article from The Atlantic. It's linked, sorry, everything we're going to be talking about, all of the housekeeping, all of the news, all of the links, all of the show notes will be available on this week's blog post on somegadgetguy.com. And again, nothing I do here is ever to supplant the article. I'm linking it because it's a part of a conversation that we're going to see play out over the next couple years, and I hope you'll give these sites traffic. We were talking, like, oh, how terrible social media is, and how come these platforms, and why don't people get more traffic? Well, we have to be that change. We have to be the ones that actually take the time to not just read a headline, but go to the site and give the site a number that gets bigger because we're giving it time and attention. So, this first story, very political because, oh, tech and politics. Oh, it's a tech podcast, but he said politics. How could he do that? This is coming by way of The Atlantic. Who wrote this up? Oh, it's at the top of the article. I didn't have the title up. Written up by Annie Lowry. What Tariffs Did, subtitle, Is This the End of the Trade War? Last week, the Supreme Court heard two cases questioning the legal underpinnings of Donald Trump's tariff regime. A couple of state governments and businesses selling toys, wine, plumbing supplies, bicycle saddles, and other goods argued that the United States trade deficits do not constitute an emergency and that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act does not give the White House the unilateral authority to impose tariffs anyway. The president argued that it would, quote, literally destroy the United States of America, end quote, if the courts rule against him. Alas, I guess the justices, three Trump appointees among them, seem likely to do so, as three lower courts have so far this year, and as a formidable group of conservative legal experts insist they must. The financial fallout would be messy. Such a ruling would cut in half the country's effective tariff rate, which at nearly 18% is the highest it's been since 1934, meaning that the revenue the Treasury collects from businesses would fall by half. The White House might have to figure out how to return tens of billions of dollars to companies that have paid import fees this year, plus interest. Despite the probable chaos, however, a ruling against the tariffs would be good for Americans' pocketbooks and good for ensuring that the current slowdown does not transform into a recession. So, this presidential administration, and I bring this up because we're techies and we're nerds, and literally right now, I cannot give you a link to pre order the OnePlus 15 because of government shutdowns and instability in pricing and regional distribution. This phone's just on hold right now until all of this stuff gets sorted out. This can get its proper FCC approvals. It can go through the regulators, go through all the right channels, and then OnePlus might still need to make price adjustments depending on how products are moved, distributed, and whether or not they're going to be smacked down with tariffs. This presidential administration has put us into the wildest rock versus hard place I think we've ever seen. So, yes, if we got rid of the tariffs that have been applied in the stupidest fashion possible, we would feel some economic relief. Goods would come down in price. I think this would be a very encouraging sign to some of our tech industry where, especially goods that were manufactured in China have been going more so to other countries. We can see a significant rise in Chinese goods going to Europe, for example. But if the tariffs end because the courts say they were never legitimate in the first place, then and this isn't the only article commenting on this, but according to this article and according to other analysts that have looked at this, the US government could be on the hook to paying back the inequity from these illegitimate tariffs to the tune of almost $1 trillion. $1 trillion being paid out from our government to businesses and countries for this inequity in trade. So, yes, we want the economic relief of not having to pay more for goods and services, but the fallout from this is also really bad. And I think we're getting to this point. People keep throwing around words like recession, but the economic policy that we've been subjected to is so unbelievably misguided and so horrifically unstable, unsustainable. I think we need to start talking about potential depression scenarios. Not, oh no, there's an economic slowdown and there's a recession. We're losing jobs at an incredible rate. The jobs reports look awful. People aren't making more money. Companies are scaling way back. We're investing tons into real estate, local infrastructure, data centers. We're sucking up electricity, which is also going to raise rates on citizens, on consumers. All of these things are stacking up against us. And now our federal government might be due a $1 trillion repayment on a stupid tariff policy. And where do you think that money's going to come from? So, definitely something we should be keeping our eye on. Please give the rest of the article a read. I only made it through the first third of the article there. There's a lot more information on in there. And also just pointing some of our family and friends. Like I'm talking to one of my cousins. She is heavily invested in tech stocks. Well, like, and she's one of those who will jokingly also say Nvidia with me because that's how President Trump pronounced it. We have fun, but she bought in a couple years ago. Recent tech stock price corrections have definitely left her feeling a little unsure of her current investment strategy. And I can point some of this stuff out and it helps. She goes to talk to an advisor, her family also kind of help point her in different directions. And we can say like, well, look at this, just watch these trends. When the money starts dropping to this point, you might want to be concerned, blah, 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 blah. We don't want this stuff to come as just a sudden rug pull and then a bunch of people get hurt. It would be nice if we could kind of help guide these bubbles as they deflate, and then we'll just try to mitigate whatever damage comes out of this presidential administration. I think it's going to get pretty bad. I'm not very confident we'll handle this gracefully. And unfortunately, a lot of the people that are sort of pulling strings on power will benefit, or they're already rich enough that it won't touch them. And that's a very dangerous position to be in for everybody else. That wealth and income inequality has spiraled to a point where people can literally buffer themselves against massive economic collapse and catastrophe. We need to make sure that they're not the ones running things. That's the doomer cult right there. The rich people. Who could have foreseen that us being so greedy would have caused doom for everyone else? Oh well, glad I have a couple yachts. That's not okay. So, it's pretty great. Pretty great. Ron Guido. Oh, they can just borrow $1 trillion from Elon. But that's only if he makes Tesla the most profitable company ever. So John's 1004, economic bubbles don't deflate gracefully, they explode. I know that. They don't have to. And that's what's so frustrating is if we studied history at all, especially with this bubble. So when we were talking about the internet bubbles, like pets.com back in that era, or also just like the actual like manipulation and abuse of like Enron stock and WorldCom stock, when those things cratered, yeah, those were going to implode catastrophically really, really fast. The interesting thing right now, and I don't have any confidence that it's going to play out this way. I'm just saying that there's a difference here and there's a potential. But the interesting thing here is so much of this is built on infrastructure, real estate, and utilities in a way that an inflated website tech stock like a pets.com isn't built on anything. There's nothing there. It's just the promise that this is a website that will generate more revenue. But right now, we've got all these data centers. And if we could slow this from just catastrophic implosion to slightly slower implosion, we would have infrastructure, technology, server use. We'd have dark servers that could then be repurposed. Maybe they get bought up by, some of them will need to be acquisitioned by the federal government. Just go in there, buy them off, hopefully save a tech company. It's like a bailout, but we'd actually get something from it. And especially as we look at the future of conflict, between other countries, if there is cyber warfare, we have infrastructure that we can repurpose and use in other avenues and use in other industry. Same thing, like taking just little bits of this of these dark data centers and funneling them into education, into not only the collegiate level but also empowering high schools to start tapping into some of this functionality, kind of like we had folding at home. You know, you could let your computer just keep running all night and it could be used to help solve math problems. Well, now we have all this infrastructure and servers that isn't being used because AI stocks cratered. That's the little difference. It's the one little tiny kernel of hope that I can look at and say something could come from this in ways that other tech bubbles have completely failed us. I don't think it's going to happen. I think it's just going to be catastrophically bad. But there's that little glimmer. Something could benefit people from this. It's pretty great. Okay. Moving on, this is just another one to kind of keep an eye on. Coming by way of notebook check. Who wrote this up? Uh, Hannes Brecker. Roomba robot vacuums could lose almost all features as iRobot faces imminent bankruptcy. The US company iRobot has been struggling with financial problems for years after a potentially game changing acquisition by Amazon didn't happen due to regulatory hurdles. iRobot has been trying to regain market share against the growing competition from China by launching new products. This spring, the company introduced a range of new robot vacuums featuring LiDAR scanners and mops in order to compete with its similarly equipped rivals. But I did not realize, so I knew at some point this wasn't looking great. I did not realize when we say they could go bankrupt, um, they could be out of business by December. And then if it's again like it's a fast pull from this market, they would shut off their servers, they would shut off their software, they would shut off all of that, and all of the extra functionality of your Roomba will probably vanish. And I just feel like this is yet another link in a chain. I've been having those conversations with the folks over at US Perg and talking about repairability and designing products to last. Like, it doesn't matter if you can fix your product if it's not really built to be fixed or to be supported or for you to own. And it's just been a growing theme. There's a cute little like animator who made a video about her experiences just in daily life. It was shared on the Discord, and I can't remember. I'll add it to the show notes. Um, but everything has an app, and all of the functionality is sort of server side, so that then when something happens or an update happens, or they just want you to buy a new thing, they can pull all the support. Your product is dead. So there's the e-waste graveyard over at Perg, US Perg. Um, I would highly recommend just kind of perusing through it because you've probably purchased a couple of things from that list that would still be functional devices today, except the manufacturer said, no, we want you to buy a new one. So we're going to pull support for the app and we're going to cut off software, or we're going to bork this one feature, and then we're just never going to fix what we broke. And I guess you'll just have to buy a new one. So it's things like this. Increasingly, I want to take something like a vacuum. I think it's cool. A robot vacuum. It like scuttles all over your living room and it picks up a bunch of telemetry about your home, and it's probably listening to your conversations. It can feed that information to whoever data broker wants to do business with the manufacturer. It's great. We love the convenience. I never got one. We've always lived in really funky shaped condos. And so our current condo is this weird skinny but tight like horseshoe shape. And so there's no one floor area that a robot vacuum would do well actually cleaning around our condo. So we just never got one. And for a lot less, we just got a couple really good, really nice stick vacuums so that we can kind of touch up, clean as we go. We got a lot of tile so we can just sweep, and that's worked fine. And now we'll never have to deal with a software update or a server getting shut down, killing our vacuum. I think that's the way it should be. Same thing. Now, Samsung refrigerators will serve you ads if they have a screen. We've never purchased a refrigerator with a screen. Now our refrigerator has a Wi-Fi connection, and I guarantee you this refrigerator will not last as long as our previous refrigerator. but we've never activated the Wi-Fi connection. It's not hooked up to anything. So that's not a useful feature to have on an appliance like that. It's just another component that will eventually break or burn out, or condensation will get onto a logic board, and then we'll have to pay for a costly repair that won't be worth it, so we'll just buy a new fridge. That kind of spiraling and poopification of things that shouldn't work that way is what we need to start pushing back against. Again, we've got a lot of organizations and grassroots efforts and right to repair bills and design to last campaigns and all the things that help, but we've got to get people over this novelty of, oh, it's a cute little robot. It's a vacuum. It's like R2D2 and it sucks up stuff in your living room and now it doesn't work. So whatever you spent hundreds of dollars on is now defunct. That's a bummer, but you know, it's business. It's how it goes. It can't be that way. And I really feel we need to come down punitively on all electronics makers. When you say this product is end of life and you're not going to support it anymore, you have to open it so that we can find alternatives. We can install our own software. We can do our own repairs. You're not going to make any money on it. You need to let it go. And if you don't want to let it go, well, then let's talk about extending support and repair then. And it's paid. I don't expect that if I had a robot vacuum that was 7 years old and I took it to an iRobot facility that I would just get it repaired for free. I would pay to have that repaired, but we can't keep doing this thing where, oh, you've got a 7-year-old Samsung. Well, the screen replacement's going to be like $600. But what if I want to put in a cheaper screen? What if I don't care? I just want to run the phone for a little bit longer. And do you have like a $200 screen I can put in there? Nope, sorry, we only have the $600 screens, and anyone who would try to ship a $200 screen, we sue them because that's copyright, that's patent infringement, and we use the Port Authority and we use the American government to prevent anyone from bringing in other compatible parts because we have patents and we have intellectual property. But you're not going to support the phone and you only have this $600 screen replacement. I should be able to shop a lesser screen to get this phone working again. And it honestly wouldn't be a lesser screen. Samsung screens aren't that great. It would probably be a very comparable screen for a lot less. Samsung is charging $600. The screen isn't worth $600. So, I went off long on that one too. Be on the lookout if anyone you know has a Roomba, just kind of chat it out with them. Just watch out. The thing might be dead soon if iRobot can't figure out how to handle bankruptcy, because that would suck. So JGJ, this is what I want. Like, they've got to make this explicit. Cue open source developers self-hosting Roombas. That'd be cool. Like, what if I could just run Roomba software from my NAS? From Tangential Tesseract, all the data being collected by robot vacuum companies and other IoT devices has me on track to become a techie version of a homesteader. I'm getting close to that too. I haven't done a ton with like security cameras and smart speakers and all that stuff. I did share on the Discord one of the more recent Amazon Alexa ads, and it is so painfully stupid. You know how we, like unironically use words like cringe? That's insufficient to describe how bad this commercial was from Amazon, trying to appeal to the hip young gamers who Twitch and stuff. And it's so awful. But, if you put an Alexa in your home, it's kind of listening to everything you're doing. It's great. Mr. Maug, am I late? Tim Cook stepping down. Will Apple be competitive again? We're actually coming up on that. I do have one other quick story about Apple, and then we'll jump into Tim Cook. Let's go ahead and move on now. So I just want to bring this one up because this has been a story we've been following for a while. A couple years now, Apple is an IP thief. They stole intellectual property from Massimo and put it in the Apple Watch. And then they got courts to say, you can't patent medical innovation like that. And I just want you to like kind of click on that. Like the heart rate sensors and the heart rate tracking ability of the Apple Watch was built on someone else's technology. And Apple has enough clout and enough and can apply enough pressure that they got courts to say, you can't patent that as an innovation. So all of the work that this company put in and deserved to be credited for their work, nope, you're not allowed to, because Apple put pressure on the legal system. This is what happens when you let a company become a $4 trillion market cap with a war chest of funds in actual cash, not going to R&D, but they spend more on stock buybacks than they do on R&D, by an order of magnitude. So this is continued. This didn't just stop with the last round, where a whole series of patents were deemed unprotectable. Like that was stuff that you couldn't have patented, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. And again, if the roles were reversed, if a smaller company had just started using tech that Apple had a patent on and was medical grade tech, I'm positive Apple would have been out there defending their IP. They wouldn't have accepted court saying, well, you can't patent that. That's how toxic and vile Apple has become in this space. They've become worse than what they fought against when they were the smaller, think different company. So, one of the remaining patents that was enforceable for Massimo, this is written up by Blake Britton over at Reuters. U.S. jury says Apple must pay Massimo $634 million in smartwatch patent case. Federal jury in California said on Friday that Apple owes medical monitoring technology company Masimo $634 million for infringing a patent covering blood oxygen reading technology. What I think is funny is the first quote in this article from Reuters is from Apple. Over the past 6 years, Massimo has sued Apple in multiple courts and asserted over 25 patents, the majority of which have been found to be invalid. The single patent in this case expired in 2022 and is specific to historic patient monitoring technology from decades ago. Do you see how Apple is outright just telling on themselves there? Like, that's not a defense. We've been ripping them off for years, and this patent expired 3 years ago, where they've been suing us for 6 years. So for at least 3 years, we've been infringing on their intellectual property. Oh, and this was specific to historic patient monitoring technology from decades ago. So that means the patent has been enforced for decades, and that companies would have needed to license this technology for decades. And Apple said, no, we don't want to. So they just took it. And they're fighting them in court to a degree where they can just exhaust their opponent with legal bills, not that they're right. You see, like, they don't even have the respect, they don't even respect you enough or the press enough to lie. Nothing about that is a denial that they stole intellectual property. Nothing about that. Think about, like, would that statement hold up under oath to a judge? And it absolutely would not. But they can talk directly to the media like that because Apple knows they've got their boot on the neck of every media outlet out there who wants to have some access to talking to Apple executives and to get the good PR and to be invited to events. You need to cover Apple. Apple is important. Apple headlines will get good traffic to your publication. So they don't even need to like crouch this in any kind of obfuscation. I can't say that word right now. They don't need to hide this at all. They don't need to lie. They don't even need, they can outright just say, yeah, we've been stealing it for years. But that doesn't matter because we're Apple. Like what about this statement? Over the past 6 years, Apple has been sued in multiple courts and asserted over 25 patents, the majority of which have been found to be invalid. Most of those patent cases went Massimo's way until we started analyzing whether or not you could patent. because we halted shipments of the Apple Watch. Billions of dollars of sales. And Apple went, well, we can't have that, and started campaigning ruthlessly. We saw a lot of activity from Apple influencing politicians, literally, like showing up at the White House to talk to lobbyists and to get lobbyists to talk to politicians. Maybe this isn't something people can patent, even though we've been enforcing these patents for decades. Is specific to historic patient monitoring technology from decades ago. We have been enforcing these patents for decades. Apple's pressure on our government suddenly voided a bunch of these patents that went Massimo's way in previous courtroom battles, to the point that we were blocking Apple Watch sales. Whatever you might say about our patent law needing reform, totally agree with you. But the whole point of the patent laws that we have today are to prevent situations like this, where a bully like Apple can just roll over smaller companies that actually provided the technology and invented the technology that benefit consumers. So our system doesn't work if the already broken patent law that we have today can be manipulated to this degree, to the point where Apple doesn't even need to hide it. They can just say, we stole it. It expired in 2022. Even though we stole it before 2022, we shouldn't have to pay any damages on this. And let's get all the way down to the bottom of this. Apple Watches bring in billions of revenue every year. Apple is still fighting this one patent, and they were hit with a $634 million fine. Pay the fine. Just pay it. It's just the cost of doing business. It's a Apple broke the law tax, and they can get away with it because they're Apple. Think about the billions of devices out there. Just the millions and millions of Apple Watches that are sold, like every quarter. How much money Apple makes on all of these business practices. $634 million fine is a rounding error in their quarterly financials. Oh no, we've got to protect our intellectual property against someone who asserts that we stole their intellectual property, which we said we did, because the patent expired in 2022 and they've been suing us for 6 years. I don't know about you. I've got a little like clock here on my computer monitor, and if I subtract 6 from 2025, it doesn't seem like I get to 2022. Now, I'm no math genius guy. I'm no expert numbers calculating math genius sort of dude, but even I can figure that one out. From Ejohns, that's pennies for Apple. The government used to fight against corporations doing stuff like this. We love us some monopolies now. Gotta find some regulators again with some spine. It's pretty rough. It's pretty bad. So, who wants to talk about Tim Cook? This is coming by way. I saw it first. Financial Times. Who got this? Oh, geez, yeah, their byline on this: Tim Bradshaw, Stephen Morris, Michael Acton in San Francisco, and Daniel Thomas in London. Apple intensifies succession planning for CEO Tim Cook. Apple is stepping up its succession planning efforts as it prepares for Tim Cook to step down as chief executive as soon as next year. Several people familiar with discussions inside the tech group told the Financial Times that its board and senior executives have recently intensified preparations for Cook to hand over the reins at the $4 trillion company after more than 14 years. So, I think we would all agree Tim Cook is the operations guy. He is the guy that is very good at lobbying governments to get what he wants for Apple. He's the guy that rolled into China and kind of revolutionized the Chinese manufacturing efforts and the Chinese distribution efforts based on what he needed for Apple. Chinese facilities learned a lot in how to make other gadgets, and I don't think we would have as competitive a Xiaomi, an Oppo, an Honor, a Huawei today if it wasn't for Apple rolling in decades ago. He was always the guy that could muscle through TSMC, get preferred manufacturing and chip fab for components. Struggled against things like Qualcomm when it came to things like radio tech and stuff like that. But Tim Cook has been a brilliant operations guy. He's incredible at raising revenue, at generating higher profits, at backing. I mean, in my assessment, he's really good at backing anti-consumer business practices that enrich Apple at the expense of their most diehard customers, at their most diehard fans. I think that is the legacy I will remember of Tim Cook. A long time ago, I genuinely don't remember if I just wrote it as an editorial or if I shot like a little video or if it was a part of a podcast. I don't keep good records on my own stuff. But near the end, when Steve Jobs was, it was pretty clear Steve Jobs was passing away. I made some comments that I was really going to miss Steve Jobs. I was a diehard Apple fan when I was younger. I was like one of the worst of those Apple sheep. Just everything Apple did was the bestest. I was an Apple product specialist for a Department of Energy facility. I had the certificate framed at one point when I went through all of my Apple training to be an Apple product specialist. And there was something about Steve Jobs that as I fell out of fandom with Apple and started getting into other brands and other companies, I really started liking Windows. I was super into like funky Windows mobile pocket PC computers, started getting into Android after that. I kind of fell off. Apple took steps away from what I liked, and other companies were making these other products that I was much more interested in. But Steve Jobs was always a singular point. He went from being this sort of cult figure that I worshiped to being a perfect nemesis. I ruthlessly hated and loved Steve Jobs. There would be at every single Apple product announcement with Steve Jobs out on stage and being smug and kind of funny and witty and, you know, and this is what the competition is doing and they can't hold a candle to us. I'd be bristling, but then he would say something and be like, oh, but you know, he just said something that I desperately want on my Windows machine or I desperately need on my Android. Dang it, he's right. But I hate him, but I love that there's this thing out there now. I hate that he's right, but I want it. I ended the whole Steve Jobs era of Apple with this like hate, love, respect. That I just, man, he would just piss me off, but then I just had to respect the game, right? There was just something cool, something I needed, something I wanted. We're getting to the end of the Tim Cook era of Apple, and all I can dredge up when I really kind of settle in and I think about my feelings about where Apple has gone, there's just this relief that he's leaving. He's been incredible from a corporate perspective, but I've seen so many of my family and friends hurt by Apple's business practices. My grandmother got scammed by an Apple store just upcharging her on iCloud when she needed an actual repair for one of her iPads. We're still dealing with that today. That her account comes with all this garbage and all these garbage files and everything's just clogged up and we're paying for iCloud that she can't really use because these products aren't working. And when we go to Apple stores, it's like, did you reboot the device or maybe you just need to buy more iCloud? And it's frustrating. She's going to turn 90 and the Apple store just has no problems stomping on this old lady. There's no solution, there's no fix. And getting other family members to acknowledge that, they won't let me move her to like a cheap Android device and tablet. We did get her on a Chromebook, and I'm still trying to point out, like, look, she's not on a MacBook. She's not using her iPads anymore. Her iPhone doesn't work at all. She's doing all this stuff on a Chromebook. Oh, but no, see, if there's like a problem, I can't send her to an Android store. So she has to have another iPhone and another iPad. And I love my aunts and uncles, but it's not helping her. I don't know how much time left she has on this planet. Maybe we should get her a phone that works. I digress. That's the era of Tim Cook. in a nutshell. Whatever enriched Apple was the correct move, and it made business bigger and business better, and it ran roughshod over all of their dedicated, most loyal customers. And then every other manufacturer would piggyback on Apple's terrible business practices, and it made all of our devices blander and worse and less competitive. And that's what I'm going to stick to when I remember Tim Cook. It makes me so viciously, desperately rose tinted glasses for the era of Steve Jobs. And it's just a relief that hopefully whoever's in that seat next won't be as good at doing the business as Tim Cook. Just that as a potential is a relief. That maybe we get someone in there with some kind of vision for the direction of Apple. Not just Apple's financials, the actual company. What can they iterate on? What can they build? This war chest of funds, maybe stop doing stock buybacks, put a little more money into R&D, and can we do anything that might shape the future of technology and computing? Under Tim Cook, the big win has been Apple Silicon. I mean that is a big win, but you know, he's been at the helm of this company for 14 years. Um, I wish we could put more at his feet that was beneficial to society, beneficial to consumers, really enriched our daily lives, but he hasn't done that. He's enriched Apple. So if you're an Apple shareholder, cool. And I'm sure you're wanting someone just like Tim Cook in there to keep squeezing every drop of blood out of every stone they come across. But I don't think that's going to be sustainable. And look at every tech company that's kind of struggling. You know, we act like Apple is indomitable now, but they weren't always. We act like we used to think companies like IBM were monolithic and were institutions that couldn't crumble. And where are they today? We used to say, like, oh, well, you know, AMD's cute, but Intel's always going to crush them. And where's Intel right now? So if you're an Apple shareholder, ride the high. Doing great, $4 trillion company. That's awesome. Good for you. Your stock looks great. But Apple's business practices have never been sustainable. Tim Cook's business practices have never been sustainable. And I don't know, it's weird to think, but yeah, there needs to be a market correction for how Apple does business. And at some point, people have to start seeing they're not really bringing their best. They're not bringing the future. They're not enriching. I hand people the toys that I play with, and it's like they're 10 years behind me if they're Apple consumers. That can't last. It didn't last for IBM. It didn't last for Intel. It's not going to last for Apple. It'll sustain for a while because they can put incredible pressure on our government, but so could Intel. So could IBM. So could Microsoft. Those things don't last. So I'll say so long, Tim Cook, right now, and he'll eventually officially step down, and great. I'm sure he'll have a lovely time on his yacht. But Apple needs a vision person. If Apple's really going to succeed into the next era of technology, they need someone with vision. And I don't think that's what they're going to get. But all I can hope is, even if it's someone like Schiller, who would argue with Tim Cook against doing the most vile things that Tim Cook could plan, even that would be a healthier direction for Apple moving into the future. All I can hope is whoever helms Apple next is not as good at the business as Tim Cook was. That's how I feel. I hope we see some change. I hope Apple starts to think different. All right, I know there has to be some other comments here. So from Tangential Tesseract, I'd like to see these patent cases and similar against the big seven tech companies start adding an extra 3 zeros to their fines. If you don't make it hurt, they're not going to change their business practices. Even $1 billion fine isn't going to change because Apple made way more than $1 billion on terrible business practices. So it's just a tax that enables them to keep doing terrible things. John's making fun of my math aptitude there. Deservedly. Subtraction. It's like addition's tricky pal. Who could even think like that? Bionic Scoop. See, this is why iPad didn't have a calculator for so long. Because what they wanted you to do was buy an app that served you ads, and then Apple would get a cut of every time you used a calculator. See, the App Store, it just works. It doesn't matter that they told governments the App Store was going to be run like almost a not-for-profit kind of institution just to help enable developers to bring, future applications to mobile products. No, they lied about that. That was never truthful. From Johns, his parachute is going to be so damn golden. See, the nice thing is, and again, with Tim Cook stepping down now, if I put on my tinfoil hat, for me, that is an acknowledgement that Tim Cook cannot find the next ratchet of revenue. That he's been struggling. He canceled the car division. Vision Pro was a massive whiff. Look at all the excitement we're about to share with, Steam Frame and stuff. I'm not excited for a Vision Pro update. I'm stupid excited for a less powerful Steam Frame. None of his initiatives have really pushed what comes next. We are rapidly entering a post-smartphone world. What is the technology that we start to rely on that displaces smartphones like smartphones displaced a whole bunch of other solo individual gadgets? And Tim Cook is not a vision guy. He's not a visionary. So Apple can't get there. If it doesn't sort of make money in this one column and the bean counters aren't doing this and we can't make shareholders happy, then why should we do it? That's where Apple is now. So right now, he doesn't need a parachute because he's going out at the top. But the way that he's going out and the timing on this suggests to me that internally, Apple is really struggling about the future of the company's direction. And shareholders are putting pressure on Apple to make some bigger executive changes. And all of the buzzwords have really flopped for Apple lately. Spatial computing, Apple intelligence, none of it's sticking. So, yeah, they're a $4 trillion company today, and they're still going to make a grip of money on iPhones, but aren't we hitting a practical plateau? Even if they have the best sales year ever for iPhones, there's nothing growing past that. Their big play is, well, we can serve more ads to generate more revenue. Remember how Apple used to say, you're not the product? You pay a premium. This is the device. We're going to keep you safe from all of that other, behavioral tracking and stuff. No, no. We can make money on this just like Google did. Simon says, Hypno, fare thee well, Tim Apple. Cook Inc. will never be the same. Truer words, my friend. Well spoken. JGJ, Apple lost me from the omission removal of Touch ID. Again, anytime that comes up, I want to rail on all of the stupid tech influencer nerds that, or I shouldn't say nerds, because I called you all nerds, and nerds is affectionate. All of the gross, despicable tech influencer hacks who made fun of phones like the LG G8, where we had touch and face scanning. See, it was nice to have both. You could have had both real, actual secure face scanning and fingerprint unlock. But instead, oh no, LG, they can't do nothing right. It's the master of none. Aditya Nil, 2026 is the year Juan goes back to being an Apple shill. Step aside, Wired Audio. Welcome 15 videos why the AirPod Pros 3 are better than your similarly priced Wired IEMs. Man, I could make so much more money. I still get pitches. I've got 3 emails in my inbox right now from this morning talking about, well, if you did this and you sold these products and you offered these affiliate links and you just talked about Apple, then you could make a lot more money. I want to make more money, guys. I really do. Tangential Tesseract, your Apple device isn't working with the other tech in your life. Clearly, the problem is that you haven't bought enough Apple devices. And it's so galling because it never ends. My grandmother had all Apple devices and it doesn't work. Now she's on a Chromebook and she's doing things again. I just can't, with people, I get in these conversations with like the parents around us too. And like I'll show them, look at all these photos that I'm taking on my phone. They look better than the photos from your phone. Look at like what I can do. Look at the battery life that I'm getting. This watch goes for 4 days on a charge. Like, oh, that's really cool. I wish mine could do that. Better give Apple another $1,000 this year. Also from Aditya, Juan subtly dropping hints that he's next in line to lead Apple. All right, so if I were the CEO of Apple, day one, I go out there to talk about a new iPhone initiative. We're talking the iPhone designed to last. We know, everybody out there, spectators, thank you so much for joining my keynote today. We know that regulations are going to be coming down that demand a higher degree of repairability so that we can properly sustain the future of telecommunications and computing for consumers. We know this is coming. We don't want to be the company that gets there after the deadline. We don't want to be last in this race. We want to drive the future of that today. So we're working with regulators in the EU to come up with the proper solution to make the iPhone as properly repairable as we can make it. We're working to be the first so that we can lead this discussion in the market. And along that, we're bringing new battery technologies to the iPhone. We're making the charging healthier for the iPhone so your battery lasts longer before you need to replace that component. And we're expanding our commitment on software, dedicating this amount of time for security patching. We can't always guarantee operating system updates. But now that we've separated OS updates from security patches, even if you hold on to a device longer, we think you should be properly protected. You can count on 10 years of support for a Chromebook. It's a $300 computer that was originally built to be kind of disposable for kids. When we're selling you a $1,300 iPhone, we want to best those expectations. That is the future of Apple. We're taking care of our customers, our loyal fans. We're making sure you've got the tech to take you into the next decade and beyond. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, and I approve this message for Apple Inc. Yeah, sorry, I got a little silly there. It's never gonna happen. Whoever takes over Apple is never gonna. They're going to fight tooth and claw to maliciously comply with any regulation that makes their products more repairable or last longer. The entire game is rigged, and we know how cynical Apple executives have been about all that. Yeah, Michael Peppertech, I'm with you. I'd love to see fewer devices in each line. We don't need multiple sizes of the same model of iPad or iPhone, one Pro iPhone, one Pro iPad, one size Apple Watch and Apple Watch Ultra, etc. I think when it comes to something wearable, I do appreciate having 3 Apple Watches, like a small, medium, and large. It gets tricky because Apple has done a really bad job of supporting mid-priced products. So their strategy has been, let's keep an older device around longer. It's tricky. As soon as I start trying to think like I want a small iPhone, a medium-sized iPhone, and a bigger iPhone, I think if the argument is Apple makes premium devices, maybe we just need to get rid of the difference between a numbered iPhone and a Pro and just go to maybe 2 sizes of iPhone, and then the next year that you come out with a new iPhone, the previous model year is the reduced price iPhone. And that I would wholeheartedly support. It was what I was hoping Google would do, is just keep the Pro around as the middle price. So you have the Pixel, either you have the Pixel number or the Pixel A and then the Pixel Pro. And then the next year, you just reduce the price on the older Pixel Pro, and that can be your middle Pixel. I think we can simplify a lot of this and acknowledge that like a 2-year-old phone is still a totally viable compute platform today. It's still going to get a couple years of software support and updates. Like you want to save a little money and there are some minor compromises to handle, that should be totally easy. Ooh, that's a good question. I wonder if anyone has thoughts. What's the likelihood of a Satya Nadella type at Apple? And yeah, I don't know. I honestly don't know. Nadella's policies, again, very profitable, but a very different focus on like features and like cloud computing, AI, stuff like that. I think that's also why Microsoft is in a really precious situation right now, too. The cracks aren't showing as evidently, but I'd be very anxious about the future of Microsoft for very similar reasons, but more on the cloud data center AI side. Um, yeah, that's kind of curious. I wonder if Apple starts looking at the viability of Asian markets and trying to make the iPhone I mean, because it's already got high cachet, but I mean, really trying to push into other developing like 4G markets as well. Maybe do you go with a CEO who's got more international cred, or do you try to make this still we're the America company? That's actually a really interesting kind of political position for Apple to be in. From E. Johns. Apple Intelligence was an impressive faceplant people still pretend exists. Now powered by Google. Go V8. And soon they will invent the flip fold phone and change the industry. I don't mean to trash folding phones. I know a lot of people out there like them. I would just like to ask, do we think that the market penetration for flip foldable phones has kind of reached near its maximum? Have we kind of plateaued on the interest people might have for a foldy bendy plastic screen with a hinge that is going to be more fragile than a standalone slate phone? I think we've kind of reached about the size of the market that's interested in that. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think that there's really potential to surge that market? And realistically, if you just tell me, well, of course we all want folding mini tablets if they could be $200, that's unrealistic. A foldy bendy plastic screen with a hinge is always going to be a price premium over a non-folding phone. So you can't use that as your cop out. It's too expensive. Yeah, we know. We all know. You can buy a really nice tablet and a really nice phone for the same price as a folding phone. But do we think that there's more market there to find? Because I think we're just seeing that kind of incremental percentage growth year over year. A few more people try them and find them, and yeah, I get it. But I think we've about maxed out the total potential as a sliver of the market of mobile devices. What do you think? Am I way off there? See, Michael Peppertech, this is what I hope. Michael says he's 65, approaching 15 years as CEO. I think we will see a hardware guy at the helm again. We need to see Apple dial it in and stop trying to do so much and focus down their existing tech. I hope so. I really hope so. I want a devices guy, a visionary guy, a where is the future of this company guy. I want that so much for Apple. Again, I'd like to have a nemesis again where it's fun, not a politician who ratchets the business because that's gross. Oh, from Ramron. Hey, I'm late. I helped my dad migrate his from his defective Pixel 7 Pro to the OnePlus 13S. He was very pleased. I'm happy to hear that. That's very nice. Ms. Merkov, Ms. Merkov, getting a chuckle out of my Master of None comment. If you know, you know. It's not even, it's so cynical. And it's so obvious. Again, I could call most of the criticisms on the OnePlus 15 before I finished my video. Like, we know what the game is. They're not even being clever about it anymore. From E. John saying, not everyone, there's a pretty big audience for smaller phones. I can appreciate that. I mean, I don't know how much smaller this really is, though. So if you look at like my Xiaomi Mix Flip versus my Vivo X300, Like, yeah, it takes up a little less than half that space, but it's double thick. So if I really wanted a smaller phone and I open, man, there's so much dust on my Mix Flip. I really don't use this phone. You can see like how much bigger the Mix Flip is than my Vivo. And the Vivo has a monstrously larger battery, much better cameras, real fast charging. I don't know. I just kind of feel like I'm not really getting the benefits of a smaller phone, and I'm getting all the compromises of a teeny phone, where an actual smaller phone performs better, has better battery life, has better cameras, and is actually easier to use one-handed because it legit is smaller. That's the kind of issue I run into whenever people talk about, oh, well, you need the smaller phones for this. And you're like, yeah, but it's not actually a smaller phone. It's kind of a normal phone. Anyway, I sorry, I digressed again. JGJ Panos Panay. Oh my God, how funny would it be if Panos Panay jumped over from Amazon, because he's at Amazon now doing incredible work, I guess. I don't even know what their hardware looks like, and Panos is, I don't know. But how hilarious would that be if he went from Microsoft to Apple with the stop in between? Man, that would be hilarious. I actually don't think he's the right fit for an Apple. Again, the way that he focuses on design, I don't think is the right move. But even that would be more interesting than another business guy as the CEO. For Mario Bros, I think the flip phones might grow. Okay, I think that's fair. I don't know about the foldy bendy tablet. I think it's too hard to make that a compelling purchase with the realities of the price increases necessary to then say, but if you need a tablet, you can get a really nice tablet for less than this folding phone. It's tough. I really struggled to consider, like, I know there are people who want the folding phone and benefit from it and don't want to carry two devices, but at a price tier, how many of those people really use the devices to the level that it benefits them to not have the two devices? And living in a family where if I travel with my tech and my gadgets, like, I can hand my daughter my tablet and keep using my phone in a situation where we all don't have multiple gadgets to ourselves, right? I can't do that with my folding phone. I'd never hand it to a 10-year-old. She's really rough on her gadgets. Her personal tablet is the 8849 tank tablet, and that has suffered some pretty good knocks. There's some good gouges and scratches on that RoboCop armored tablet there. And Dave, yeah, Dave, I would love to have a 5-inch screen with the premium processor and premium camera and software. I think a lot of people would. I think, again, the lie of the iPhone Air is that it's smaller, but it's not. It's bigger, in height and width, and it's thinner, which actually makes it harder to hold on to unless you have a battery in a case stuck to the back of that phone. And the iPhone mini sold decently. The minis were better phones for people who wanted smaller devices. I still miss, it's over there. I have the original iPhone SE that was based on the iPhone 5 frame. And I'm never going to let go of that phone. It's a museum piece. But it was the perfect one thumb device. I hated those commercials, and I've said this before, but it was. I'm running through an airport, I'm checking information, I can do everything on this phone with one thumb. Give me back an iPhone 5 form factor device. I would be so happy. Be so great. Love it. I would love to see Apple do something like that again. If you're really addressing smaller phones, make a smaller phone. Don't make a thinner phone. That means you had to cut features out of the phone. And that's cynical and awful for your consumers. So, I had a couple Google stories. I'm going to go ahead and skip them. Let me just, I'm going to keep them in the show notes. I do want people to follow up on them. The first one was from Android Authority, written up by Mishal. Mishal's a real one. Google is preparing a big Android 17 gaming upgrades for fans of real controllers. Long overdue. Android 17 might bring actual controller mapping to Android. So you don't have to use a third-party app or customize your controller in a game. It should just be a standard that all app developers and game developers can use. And then you can connect any controller and make sure that you can control your game. Read the article. There's a lot more to it than just that. And then the other one was the story that came out this last week that Google is going to allow advanced users to continue installing software on their phone. So Google's trying to kill this thing they call side loading. Now, I want you to stick with me for just a second. Side loading sounds really scary and hackery and technical dark webby, right? Ooh, you're sideways loading an APK on your phone. It's installing software. Google has been trying to prevent us from being able to install software on our phones unless it comes from a registered developer, which costs those developers money and puts a big hurt on open source software communities who don't want to have to do all that, or if you just install it directly through Google Play. That's bad. And it's one of the reasons why I like Android. So if they get in the way of this, they're locking down their platform in a way that's really stupid and makes me less interested in future Android phones. So they got a lot of developer pushback, they got some enthusiast pushback, and now they're going to start doing this thing where if you're an advanced user, then you can still side load. And I don't know how that's going to be verified or how that's going to be controlled or how it's going to work. Go ahead and read the article. I'm linking the Ars Technica article, but there's also a Google developer blog post about this too. This is a really bad look for Google at the worst possible time. They've lost so many court cases for anti-consumer and anti-competitive business practices. They're negotiating with Epic on how other stores should work. And right now, you can get free games from Epic. You should absolutely have Epic games installed on your phone. And I'm using this as the transition because Google has to see that Google Play does not have a great reputation for gaming. Is anyone in this chat really excited about seeing new games pop up on the Google Play Store? I'm really excited when I see old PC games get ported to Android. That makes me super excited. But if you haven't noticed, lately in a lot of my videos over the last, I don't know, 6 months, when I start talking about performance and I talk about gaming, I'm not firing up Genshin Impact. I'm not firing up COD or PUBG or Fortnite. I'm going to actual PC games from my Steam account and I'm installing those PC games on my Android phone and they play on the Android phone. They're not streamed. It's not like Stadia. It's not like Game Pass X Cloud. It's not like Nvidia's whatever they call their game streaming technology. The game is being installed. Tens of gigabytes of game are installed on the phone, and the phone's processor and GPU play the game locally on that device. They render and they raster and they perform the game right there. Google and Apple, they have helped foster this reputation for mobile gaming that it's terrible gambling mechanics, that it's gotcha, it's slot machines, lots of cooldown clocks, predatory in-app purchases, all of the worst of gaming have kind of funneled their way in the most toxic and addictive ways possible into mobile gaming. And when I bring these things up, it's to point out, well, we need to support developers that bring good games to Android. We need to support developers that bring good games to iPhone. It doesn't have to be that way. But the marketing from Google, you open up Google Play and you're going to see a bunch of random garbage apps, ads and cooldown clocks and in-app purchases and skins and player progression all locked behind paywalls. Excuse me, because that stuff works. It's really gross and it's toxic and it's addictive and it gets younger consumers trained on the worst predatory aspects of gaming. But YouTube will censor any video that talks about Balatro Because Balatro looks a little like poker. And isn't poker gambling? Well, no gambling on YouTube, thank you very much. But why don't you play this game with an anime babe where to get an upgrade, you have to pull slot machines until you run out of gems, and then you can buy a gem pack for $5.99. That's fine. Actual gambling mechanics, totally fine. Something that looks a little like poker, but is one of the best action combat games, roguelites of the last decade. Oh no, can't have that. We're YouTube. But I'm not bitter. So, anyway, the reason why I'm dovetailing this is because it makes me so critically excited for Valve's recent announcements for Steam, specifically the Steam frame. And this is where we're going to transfer over to my nerd out. I mentioned this briefly in the little geeky video where I just reacted, but this is a potentially cataclysmic shift in how we buy games for mobile. This is medium term. This is not going to happen all at once. It's not going to happen right at the beginning. A lot of nerds won't have the patience or the imagination to think a couple steps outside. But this touches on every single little aspect of why I'm so flippin' exhausted by tech influencers in these conversations who have no vision themselves. All they do is tell you what's already popular, and then that has to stay exactly the same. Right now in this one moment in time, if I look up on Google Trends what's most popular, that's what will make me the most money. So that's what I'm going to talk about, and that also is reassuring to their audience who also know what's popular in this moment. But then if I try to say anything that steps outside that, well, I might get it wrong. So I'm putting my heart on my sleeve. I'm putting my feelings out there, and this is my medium-term projection for what we could see. Steam Frame is a VR headset. VR isn't huge, but it's not as small as techies make it out to be. Techies keep saying, oh, we need companies like Apple to save VR. But as much as I despise Facebook and I refuse to give any money to Meta if I can help it, and I haven't used an Oculus since before Meta bought Oculus, we can't deny that the Oculus Quest 2 and Quest 3 have sold in Xbox console numbers. Millions of those headsets are out there. Apple can't save VR because VR doesn't need saving. It's just never going to be the exact same kind of mass market solution that a Nintendo Switch or a PlayStation 5 or a gaming PC might be. We know it's going to be niche. We know it's going to be enthusiast. We know VR is a very singular kind of immersive experience. That's hard to share too. So we know it's not going to be the Nintendo Switch. Let me just plug it into a TV and hand some Joy-Cons and we can all play together. That's not what VR is. But VR is a singular kind of immersive entertainment experience that I am very excited about. And I like sharing that experience, and I like showing people some of the fun little things that you can do with it. I know it's going to be a bit more solitary, and I know it's going to be a bit more constrained, and we can have little gimmicks that maybe, what is it, don't stop talking, or everyone explodes, or something like that. There are ways that you can make it more social, but that's not its point. The idea that we were all going to walk around like we were in Ready Player One, doing our school and doing our work in big, heavy, suffocating, hot goggles, like Apple was trying to show us with Vision Pro. You had to know that that was stupid, that that was never going to be the thing. Anyone who sat there and, and I like to pinch and look, and I can move things, and look, all this cool stuff that I can do with spatial computing. No, 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 no. That wasn't it. It wasn't it. It wasn't it. So we've got Frame. Frame is a headset. The specs look pretty decent. I'm not going to go through and read off all the specs and stuff. But one, I want to point out, Steam has designed a lightweight headset that does not have a soap on the rope battery. The battery is counterweighted on the back of your head. And because we don't have a whole bunch of stupid stuff like a screen on the front of the headset to simulate what your eyes look like, we don't need to add all the extra weight and bulk. Apple does this thing where they like to make parts of their casing out of metal. Metal is heavier. We don't need to do that. we can keep the build material lightweight. Steam frame vents and has plastic and has a battery on the back of the head, and so all of this should be counterbalanced and it should be more comfortable to wear for longer periods of time. It's just like headphones. I don't like AirPods Max because I think they're kind of uncomfortable and they're heavy and they get hot. And especially for a sweaty dude like me, man, I can drain sweat out of the AirPods Max because of how they insulate and have metal cups and just moisture builds up in there. Do you know how gross that is? And that's not a problem I have with my my XM4s or my XM6. It's not an issue I've got with any of my open back headphones, et cetera, et cetera. Not even with my Eventho 100s. Steam Frame is not going to set the world on fire as a compute platform. What's going into the Steam Frame is a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So this is an older ARM SoC. So right now we've got the 8 Elite Gen 5. Last year we had the 8 Elite, technically Gen 4. Then the year before that, we had the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. So already we've had a lot of nerds come out. What's funny is like, I saw some of the announcement from like Gamers Nexus. Gamers Nexus, for whatever reason, they hate anything ARM related. Like Steve can't help rolling his eyes. Oh, and it's an ARM chip, so that's not exciting. If there's anything ARM in the discussion, he immediately writes it off. And same thing with Wendell at level 1. Like, oh, well, you need x86, and here's a new server that I've gotten. Intel's canceling a bunch of server parts, but that's still, you still need x86. Cool. I've got a computer on my face. You know what happens when I put a computer on my face? I want the absolute best performance per watt. Not the best performance, the best performance per watt, so that this thing doesn't cook my eyeballs. And do you know what chip goes into Oculus headsets? It's a chip that's actually roughly, it's a little bit more powerful in terms of compute than a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2. So getting an 8 Gen 3 in a headset you wear on your face is actually a tiny bit of an upgrade over the chip that's currently in the Oculus Quest 3. It's not, I mean, genuinely, I doubt that if you were to wear both headsets, you would notice tremendous differences in performance in compute. But we can point out the chip that went into top of the line phones 2 generations ago is now going to be in a headset. So what does that mean? It's an ARM chip. And a major part of this, I do want to highlight, a major part of Steam Frame is that it's going to stream. So I would be running this phone from another computer and streaming the content to the Steam Frame wirelessly over this new adapter that they've created. So if I've got a pretty decent or pretty beefy gaming PC, the headset isn't rendering the game, it's just displaying the game. And that's also what a Quest can do too. You can do pass-through, you can do streaming from another computer on a Quest. But there will be a program to certify games for the frame, which means those games have to be installable and locally playable on an ARM chip, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. And Steam has come up with a new emulation platform, or I don't know that they've developed it, but they're employing FEX, F-E-X. And that is an emulation engine, which then helps with Proton, a compatibility layer, so we can install Windows software on an ARM PC. And this is going to run SteamOS. So are you starting to put some of the pieces together? Right now, we've been complaining about gaming on Android, right? Well, I've got some tablets that have Snapdragon 8 Gen 3s. Wouldn't it be cool if I could install SteamOS on that tablet, which is a full build of Linux? I could install real PC games on that tablet running an 8 Gen 3. FEX would do the emulation, Proton would deliver all the compatibility for Windows software, and then I could just play a game like I install it on my Steam Deck. We see the potential for ARM computers if we can improve on compatibility and emulation. If developers start making this more accessible, I don't have to ever go to Google Play to install a game ever again. The games I really want to play, I'll buy from Humble Bundle. I'll get them for cheap. I'll put in a Steam code. They'll show up in my Steam library. And then I can go to this device with Fex and Proton and say, install the game and let me play it on my 8 Elite Gen 6. Steam has the potential to open up their app now because of all the recent court battles that Google has been losing about, anti-competitive business practices and locking down app stores and preventing people from side loading and hacking their devices. What if your Steam app on Android wasn't just your library and your friends list, but was actually the store that then you could install and play games directly on Android? Steam could start selling Android apps in the Steam library because you can sideload APKs on the Steam frame. So let's say there is a really good Android game and you want to play it on the frame. What if you just bought it directly from Steam and it was a part of your Steam library? This is cutting in both directions, and Steam could take a massive chunk out of Google's gaming revenue by offering developers perks and incentives. And hey, come to Steam, people will buy your game, they can buy the game from any other store and get a Steam code for it. And there's also this thing, like, there's just less of that really toxic marketing ads gotcha mechanics on games that are approved by Steam. All of this would go hand in hand in hand in hand. I am so critically anxious about where Frame could take mobile. And to me, it's also that last point. It's acknowledging there is a tool that we have underrepresented, the ARM mobile SoC, the system on chip, the CPU and GPU and RAM that's all on one block, little mini block of silicon. And again, PC gamer bros have been dismissing this for years. Ever since I was at Newegg, I would try to talk about, hey, what if we put an ARM chip in a laptop? Oh, that could never happen because I need GPUs and you can't play games. Sorry. But what if you could play games? So it's just been galling to me. We willfully look past the Nintendo Switch, which has an incredible longevity. It's an NVIDIA ARM SoC. We've completely looked past the Oculus Quest, Quest 2 and Quest 3, which have Qualcomm ARM-based SoCs. ARM is legit in gaming. Oh, and the Nintendo Switch 2, one of the fastest selling consoles of all time, ARM chip. The future of gaming, especially if it needs to be portable, is ARM. It is the best performance per watt you're gonna get. I get it. You can get a more powerful system with an AMD APU, like a little Lenovo or the Asus. Sure, those things will cost $1,000. They'll get like an hour and a half of battery life, but they will do a better job of rendering more graphics intense games. Is that what you really need for portability? I would posit no. And especially if I'm going to put this thing on my face, I want something that gets a better performance per watt than what I would get with an x86 chip. I don't want it cooking my face. So this is also that last little FU to all of the other tech bros and PC gamer nerds and stuff like that. ARM has been ready for generations. Since the Snapdragon 865, 5 years ago, we've been good. We've had a performance per watt that could make significant impacts on the market, and we needed developers to start taking it more seriously. Right now, Steam has shown, Valve has shown that through products like the Steam Deck, they can significantly alter the sort of perception of mobile gaming. Steam Deck didn't crazy outsell any other console. It's not like it's even touching Nintendo Switch numbers, but it had such a huge and tangible impact on the gaming industry writ large. Frame could also do that not just for VR, but literally how we buy how we sell, how we install, and what platforms are supported thanks to the technologies in this. I have been so incredibly anxious to see what the Frame would do. There was some rumors, like, again, because Frame and Steam Machines were kind of being rumored at the same time. For like a brief moment, there were these rumors that, like, oh no, we've seen some other technical specifications on another Steam piece of hardware that's running an AMD APU. So maybe Steam, Project Deckard, is going to be a VR headset with an AMD chip inside of it. And that to me would have been a no go entirely. But thankfully, we did kind of tap out Snapdragon 8 Gen 3. Obviously, I would have preferred something maybe a little newer, or Ryan cores or something like that. That'd have been fun. But that's a very good chunk of compute power to put into a portable device. I should be able to play Beat Saber locally on an 8 Gen 3. And Beat Saber is the best ambassador to VR. Everyone feels cool when you put a VR headset on them and you have them slide and swipe at blocks to the beat of the music. It is like universal, it's tribal. I can get anyone kind of stoked about VR playing stuff like that. And also, you work up a sweat. Like, you'll burn some calories playing Beat Saber. So, whew, that's kind of my spiel on Frame. This is one of the biggest, potentially disruptive business moves I've seen Valve make, maybe ever. Because the future of mobile gaming could be defined by their business practices today, by incorporating the technologies and giving developers the platforms to move traditional PC games to more mobile devices. And how much fun it's been doing that at an enthusiast level with just the emulation tools that we have now. Effects can really raise the bar on that kind of performance. This could be awesome. And SteamOS might be a viable alternative for a tablet. And I could just have a build of Linux on an Android tablet if I could move that over. This is making me excited, and it's in the funniest way, it's making me excited because I can step away from some of the worst aspects of Google's most recent business decisions and how they're running Android as a community, as a platform, and how they're doing business on the Play Store. I know it's like I'm pitting one massive corporation and one billionaire against another massive corporation and a multimillionaire. And, it's like Godzilla fighting another kaiju. Let them fight. We're probably all going to get stomped on at some point. But the major difference, and from picking up the Steam Deck to now seeing this announcement on the Steam Frame, is just opening up potential again where we haven't had potential in a really long time. Competition is the only thing that gets companies to change their behavior. If I can take my money elsewhere, I'm not going to go and buy Android games in addition to my PC games anymore. I bought Dead Cells 3 times. I bought Balatro twice. I bought Grid twice. I bought Alien vs. Predator. I have on almost every single store that has ever offered Alien vs. Predator. I'm sorry, Alien Isolation, not Alien versus Predator. I actually do have multiple copies of AVP too, because I'm old. But I'm not going to do that anymore. If a game developer doesn't want to bring their game to Android, I'll buy it on Humble Bundle or Fanatical or buy it on a sale, and then I'll play it where I want to play it. I'll play it on an Android, I'll play it on a Frame, I'll play it on a Steam Deck, I'll play it on a PC, I'll play it on a Linux machine. I'm not going to buy another copy of it so that I get the best version of that on my phone or tablet. They miss out on that extra sale if they're not going to get ahead and make a good version native to Android. I've got emulation tools that are going to do this job really well. This could be huge, and it's going to put a ton of pressure on Google to try and figure out what their strategy is. They've been dipping their toe in gaming in these half-hearted measures our entire Android lives. I mean, from Stadia to now Google Play games for PC. If you wanted to play garbage gotcha games on a regular computer, here's some half-hearted attempts at emulation for Android. Not great. Really not great. And we could have had a better version of that on Windows machines with the Windows subsystem for Android, but then that whiffed, and Microsoft could have made a ton of money on that and decided not to. It's so frustrating. I'm going to shut up for a second. And just kind of go through some of these comments here. I really need to get another drink of coffee here because I'm running dry. And we can use this to kind of wrap up. And also, if you have any thoughts on the Steam machine, I have some thoughts on that too. But obviously, for me, mobile has always been the passion. That's what's really driven so much of my tech commentary for 20 years now. And this to me is so much bigger than just it's a new VR headset. That to me is almost like the least important part of this whole discussion. It's all of the technology, all of the business that goes into this technology, and how the future of us being able to buy games could be completely changed over the next couple of years. Okay, so let me scroll back up. There's a lot of stuff here. I gotta scroll back up. Do do do. All right. From Mario Bros. I'm open to moonlight streaming your local PC to your other device, but local PC games are a dream. And so I am kind of interested to see what Valve has done is a singular wireless connection that enables foveated streaming. So foveation is where you only kind of render the clarity where the eyeballs are looking at on the screen. And so foveated rendering is not new. We have that in VR headsets now, but it's really interesting to see foveated streaming. So the round trip where your eye looks then sends a signal back wirelessly to the PC generating the content and then returns to render that portion where your eyes are going. And they say they can make that round trip fast enough that it reduces the processing needs on the host computer and it's still a high frame rate experience for the user in a wireless headset. So I'm very curious to see what that looks like. I really hope that works as well as they're saying that they've managed to make that round trip feel seamless. But then you're totally correct. If we can start like natively playing games on an 8 Gen 3, there's no excuse anymore. ARM is here, ARM is legit. Your phones and tablets have always had this ability to play better quality games. Let them play better quality games. Get developers to bring better quality games to mobile devices. And JGJ, I knew you were going to, yay, Linux product success. Hooray! So we've got the Steam machine. And the Steam machine is interesting because it is going to be another Steam OS box, another Linux PC, and it's got an AMD APU in there. And I don't think any of these products are going to be inexpensive. I think they're all going to be pretty pricey. I know some people were like, "Oh, well, the Steam frame is going to fail if it's not like $300 and a half a ham sandwich," because I can get a Quest 2 and it's just as good and better and software and Meta and Facebook. I think it's going to end up being like $1,000 headset, and I'm happy to pay the premium to never give Facebook a dime. I've never spent money on a Meta Facebook product. I don't feel like starting now. But then also that Steam machine, it's a great baseline for what a 1080p living room gaming experience should be. Looking at the specs that are in that box, to me, it looks really similar to sort of a higher end mini PC. So I kind of would also expect that Steam machine is probably coming in 900, $1,000, somewhere in there. I built a little Steam box out of a Geekom A8, has an AMD 8945HS. That's the, I forget what GPU it is. Is that the Radeon 890? No. No. It's like 780. I don't remember. Last generation Radeon integrated graphics. But that's a machine that can sell for like $800, $900, depending on what sale you buy it on. So that's very similar to some of the chips that have been in these $1,000 portable consoles, and the Steam Machine looks like it's going to be more powerful than those. I would totally expect Steam Machine to also be around $1,000. And that is pricey. That's not a casual, let me buy a new Xbox Series S kind of purchase, but it is a full-fledged Linux computer. And it is it is really cool. Like I'm running SteamOS on this little Geekom mini PC. It works so well. It's really great. It's way more powerful than my Steam Deck and has the benefit of just being plugged in so that chip just runs full power. That is a 1080p gaming living room experience. I love it. It really does the gig. DTNL, I'm legit scared to continue watching this podcast. I know Juan is going to get me hyped up and is going to somehow make me place a pre-order for the Steam frame. He knows I'm a tech enthusiast. I love digging into other people's wallets. I was hoping Sean would pop up and just be like, yo, Sean, what are we buying here? You want to get that Steam machine? You want a little mini PC? Is that how we doing? Someone let Sean know I was thinking of him. Antonio saying I'm interested in the Steam frame, but I'm worried about the price because VR tends to be too expensive in my opinion. So first of all, you're not wrong. Meta set an expectation that if they rake your user and behavior data and all of the telemetry in your home with open cameras and mics, that they could charge a little less for how they were subsidizing the costs of the Oculus. And also other business sectors in Meta and Facebook could be used to subsidize the cost of the Oculus. You've got to get over. Meta doesn't get to set the price. That is not what VR is worth. It is handy. That is a consumer benefit. You pay less, but then you're always tied into that ecosystem, that software licensing, and that telemetry. I know they've backed it off. Oh, now we don't subsidize the price at all. And that's crap. That's not true in like an objective truth sense. They might have reduced their manufacturing costs, their distribution, however that might work, and they can say on a sheet, oh no, we're not doing all this crazy bad stuff. But when we look at how an enthusiast product for a niche community is built and sold, I think we got a pretty good baseline. We can look at what HTC has been doing with the Vive, and that's really how much a VR headset costs. That's what it really costs. And to me, this is one of the reasons why VR needs to fail in the greater consumer market and go back to being an enthusiast device so that we can really learn what like the next steps with mixed reality and augmented reality should be. If we let Facebook win because their headsets are cheaper, then we'll kind of never get there. We'll only get how Facebook ratchets their consumers. That'll be what the market looks like. So it is a reframing. We need to be realistic about what this looks like. Again, look at Apple. They came out with a much more powerful face computer. It was not a success, but what did they price their face computer at? Realistically, that's what a top of the line, premium grade, current tech face computer should cost. That's realistic. We've got to get over this. If we turn you into the product, you can save a little money. I am going to pay the premium over an Oculus so I never have to give Facebook my money and they don't get access to my home and my personal information and all of my user behavior. I feel that's valuable to me. Other people are going to disagree, and that's fine. I'm not their dad. I'm not going to tell them how to spend their money. But we keep pointing to Facebook as this terrible force on politics, on conversations, on social media. Everything about this company has turned toxic. How they ratchet discontent, how they make you fight with other people, how they keep you miserable, and how their money goes into funding terrible efforts and getting Mark Zuckerberg another super mega yacht. So do you want to keep giving them money and time and effort and energy and data? You can stop. It is going to cost you a little bit more upfront, but I'm going to sleep better at night owning a frame than I will owning an Oculus. So that's valuable to me. That's worth the price premium. And I'm even going so far as to say I'm expecting the upper limit of frame to be maybe $1,500. That's where I'm comfortable. Day one, pre-orders. I'm putting in my pre-order. I'm good to go. And that's to me is saying for the 1 terabyte edition, I'm happy to throw that money at a frame. That's 3 times the cost of an Oculus, and that's how much it matters to me to not do business with Facebook. And other people will make their own decisions, but I'm drawing that line in the sand. You don't see videos of Meta glasses and Oculus on my channel. Again, just like Samsung and Apple, I would make so much more money if I were shilling a company that I utterly despised. But then I wouldn't be able to sleep at night, so I don't. Yeah, Mario. LOL, the GameCube gonna get people to try Linux unironically. Steam Deck did the same. Because it's not scary, because Linux is not fundamentally different. It's really not a thing that people need to be anxious about. It is a piece of software that does what you need it to do. And it works like you need it to work. Yep. From Ramron, I love the fact that the Steam frame has just an ARM SoC, so theoretically the translation layer development time will be shortened. And someone else corrected me on this too. Apparently, Fex is already sort of a platform an emulation tool that's been in operation. I guess it's what's in GameSir's Game Hub. But again, the more public facing support we have for it, the better it's going to get faster. So again, from Winlater to Game Hub, this is so much better. A company that makes controllers put some effort into making a more polished emulation app, and it got way better for gaming than I've ever found Winlater to be. Now we can only imagine what happens when Steam puts some effort behind emulation. I have very high expectations on how much faster it will get better. So Uncle Gamer saying, I'd be surprised if it's over 600. So I already have to say that is probably unlikely. Again, sorry, I just dropped something on the floor. I had to pick it up. Again, look at how much an HTC headset costs. I don't think Valve is going to benefit from any other engineering cost benefits or savings. And then they, in interviews, like for the first round of videos of people who actually got to go hands-on with Valve employees, I don't think anyone at Valve has actually been pinned down on cost, but a lot of other people speaking about their interviews have said things like it should be in the ballpark of Index, and Index was $1,000 VR headset. That's what I'm priming my expectations on. That a full kit, controllers, wireless radio, new headset, everything that's going into this, I'm expecting at around $1,000, and my upper limit is 1,500. That's kind of where I'm feeling. If Valve could, and they could blow the doors off of a headset that doesn't have all of the other additional um, sort of subsidizing on it, I think they would have made more noise about that already. If they had a plan to say, this is what we're going to do, this is how much it's going to cost, and internally they knew they were radically subsidizing the cost of the headset, then I think they would have said something more in that vein already. But so far, all we've heard from these early hands-on and early interviews is it's going to be around the price of an Index. But Valve, no one that I know of from Valve has come out and confirmed what the price window might look like. So that's kind of where I don't want people going into this. Like, if it does cost $600, I will be super stoked. Having a Steam Deck did get me to buy a lot more software on Steam's platform. Not necessarily from Steam, but they're all Steam codes. Valve got their cut at some point, I'm sure. But I don't think you can subsidize that drastically, especially not for a niche product, and VR is not going to be as big as the Steam Deck. And knowing the realities of the manufacturing that's going to go into a VR headset, how expensive it is to make for the limited numbers that you're going to ship, I don't think they can pull that off. That's my guess. I don't think they can pull off such a heavy subsidizing that it could potentially cut the price to a third of what the reality of that looks like out in the market today. So again, I want to feel like expectations are kind of being properly established. Tangential Tesseract, when is a Steam Deck 2 When a Steam Deck 2 drops with an ARM chip and plays as much as the Steam Deck does, but better, I can't wait to see the reactions because that is one of the articles that I was going to talk about. Here it is. Come on. This is from Ars Technica, written up by Kyle Orland. Valve says it's still waiting for better chips to power Steam Deck 2. Even a 50% performance per watt improvement wouldn't be enough, an engineer says. The thing we're making sure of is that it's a worthwhile enough performance upgrade for a Steam Deck 2 to make sense as a standalone product. We're not interested in getting to a point where it's 20 or 30 or even 50% more performance at the same battery life. We want something a little bit more demarcated than that. So I think it is very likely Steam is going to slow play this. The Steam Deck is now the perfect baseline. It is a baseline product. If you're a PC gamer, this is the minimum floor that you should be looking into for a machine. Steam Machine takes that up as like the baseline for a living room gaming experience. 1080p gaming, that's your baseline, is where a Steam Machine is going to fit. And I think Frame is going to help them learn for Steam Deck 2, do they go with an x86 chip or do they go with an ARM chip? And I am very confident that Steam Deck 2 will probably be ARM. If Frame can improve emulation and compatibility layers at all, Steam Deck 2 should go ARM. Just like a Nintendo Switch, a Nintendo Switch 2, you can get a much better performance per watt. You can have that SoC really be a core part of that experience. And you can also use it to play mobile games, Android games, sideload APKs, be all techie. It'll run a full build of Linux. We know Linux on ARM has been great for a while now, especially for the last 2 or 3 generations of ARM chips that I've played with in laptops. ARM has been solid for Linux. This is a very clear trajectory that they could go. I'd be really curious to see, what does AMD do? How do you improve performance per watt? Because there's still a lot of really sticky bits in x86 that cause kind of an overhead in that compute pipeline. ARM seems to struggle less with that. Again, on a phone, I can play Crysis Remastered at 3 watts. It's not really playable, but I fired up Horizon Zero Dawn, and I was playing it on the OnePlus 15. And yeah, it's kind of floating at like 20 frames per second, but man, when it dips to like 2. And it's like, this game is unplayable. But even then, running that SoC hard on the OnePlus 15 and maxing out at like 20 frames per second, it was still only like pulling like 8 watts. You're like, yeah, if I could play Horizon at 12 watts on an ARM chip in a Steam Deck, and it was like a good playable frame rate, that'd be worth it to me. That would work well, I think. From E. Johns, cool, I've got a computer on my face. That's a back of the box quote if I've ever heard one. I love it. Oh, from Antonio Cunningham, again, saying why these things should be less expensive. Then again, I'm probably not the target audience because I would use it the same way I use the X-Real Air 1. So I think there's a benefit to that. So if you want that big screen presentation view, get a Steam Deck, get a pair of glasses, you're golden. I'm serious, that's great. That is a great way to play traditional games that would go on a computer monitor or on a TV. But I can't play Beat Saber like that. I can't play like some of those really fun boxing games, or there was one where it was like cross country skiing and it was like a workout. So the way that you would move was this like arm movement that was like pulling your character forward, and then when where your head went would sort of move the character around, and you would have to be really careful about your acceleration. Stuff like that is so much fun to share in VR. Even playing more immersive games, like I love playing Tetris. Playing Tetris on my X Reels is awesome. Playing Tetris in full VR is better. I love the game Thumper. It's a little rhythm violence horror game. Awesome. It's really good on my X Reels. It is better when that weird alien world is wrapped all the way around your head. So it's things like that. That is niche, that is enthusiast, but that's where I think VR should be. I don't think VR should be trying to make a big play to the mainstream because it's not ready. All this time, we keep dabbling with VR, then backing away from VR, then Apple tries it, then backs away. We haven't learned what we need to learn to make that immersive experience more accessible to consumers. And just like when you put X reels on someone's face, it's like you've slingshotted them years into the future. They haven't seen anything like it. We need to deliver these experiences in ways that consumers can find so they can at least start acclimating to what the future of screens on my face should look like. Oh yeah, some Romron. The FX CPU translation layers already in Game Hub on Android already, Juan. Thank you for the correction. I knew, I like in my brain, I knew it wasn't just Steam that was doing FX, but yeah, I remembered now. Oh, Darren, Risk is the future from Hackers. Risk is good. Love it. They already called it. Hackers knew what was up. No, so Goat V8's asking the same thing. Do you think they'll undercut the competition's prices and make it up in the Steam store? I don't think they will. I don't think you can sell enough VR headsets to make up the difference in manufacturing and distribution. I said that before, but I really don't think they can. I hope they can. That would be cool if I was wrong, but I'd rather be wrong saying um, be expecting higher prices and the prices come in lower than getting everyone's hopes up like all these nerds are doing. All these, excuse me, all these hacks are doing. It should only be $400. Well, that's a poopy thing to do because we're pretty sure it's not gonna be that. So don't set up people with expectations that then they're gonna be disappointed by. Future, it's here. Microsoft is working on an ARM Xbox, and they would be foolish not to, especially after the Asus ROG Ally for Xbox edition. You know, the APU is great. That is a beefy APU, but if you want to get better playability and battery life and portability, you'd emulate Nintendo. You would pay attention to what Nintendo is doing. From Darcy. ARM on Linux really requires hardware vendor support, so an ARM Steam Deck might be the thing, but it makes me a bit skeptical in general because hardware vendors really want to pay that Windows tax. That's true, but on top of that, we've already seen such significant improvements to things like Windows subsystem for Linux in Windows. Like my ability to run Ubuntu inside Windows on an ARM chip has been phenomenal. Um, the recent builds for Ubuntu on the X Elite have gotten much better. And again, if Steam comes out and says, here's Steam OS for ARM, I would imagine that would run pretty well. So if the requirement is a whole bunch of components and a Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, I don't think it would be outside the realm of possibility that some tinkerers out there could look at what Valve was doing on Steam Frame and say, but I also have this other tablet, and as long as we can kind of jailbreak or unlock this Android tablet, it's got an 8 Gen 3, we could probably get Steam OS running on this hardware. So I'm hoping that it'll be kind of like, again, this is medium term. This is not immediately at launch, but a couple years out, how we're all doing like, here's yet another custom ROM for the OnePlus 6. The Snapdragon 8 Gen 3 might be that for the future. Here's another Linux build for the 8 Gen 3 because we found out how to unlock this one tablet and we had the work done by Valve for Steam OS. That could work. That's not what will happen, but I'm just saying there's potential there. So I just saw the time. I got to get going. I'm so sorry. Darren, I know you wanted to kind of chat some hearing aids and stuff, and I'm just going to have to save that for yet another conversation. But I am crazy excited for what might happen here. I'm desperate to know when pre-orders are going to go live. Like I said, up to a certain dollar amount, I am throwing money at Valve, just like I did with the Steam Deck. Steam Deck has completely changed my relationship with PC gaming. It really is incredible. So, lots of stuff coming to the channel. I've got videos and editorials. I'm going to be doing a bunch of shorts. I actually have some ideas for shorts that I think will be fun to talk out, small ideas in short form video. And some follow-ups that I'm going to be doing. I'm finishing up a comparison between the Vivo X300 Pro and the OnePlus 15, so we can look at the new MediaTek versus the new Snapdragon, the new Qualcomm chips, just what kind of performance we should be expecting. And then I'm going to be finishing up a standalone review on the X300. If you want an incredible smaller phone with great cameras and great battery life, might that be a phone for you to shop? That's a big maybe question mark. I'm sure you already know the answer to that question. So stay tuned. This is this is this is the most lit up I've been in a while for the potential of where our tech could go. And that's the stuff we should care about, and it's hopefully the stuff that we're sharing with our family and friends. So I want you all to have an amazing week. I want you to do awesome with your technology. I want you to be awesome with your technology. And I really need you all to take care of yourselves so you can keep being the tech neighbors that your family and friends need. You probably don't get enough credit for helping them out with stuff. The holidays are coming up. You're going to have to reset Ani's router and fix your uncle's TV and like reboot your grandma's phone. Got to do the tech support. You got to do the work. They don't even know how badly they really need you to help them handle that stuff. But us nerds, we got to stick together. We got to look out for each other. We got to have each other's backs. Keep that mental health game going. It's a big ask, and it's a lot of work, but you're doing the good work, and I'm proud of you. So, catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe, take care. I'll catch you back, and I love you all. Be well.